Then, just as I turned onto my side, the scent hit me. Warm cinnamon, rich coffee, and the faintest trace of vanilla. My heart swelled. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and pulled on my robe. The house was quiet, but there was an air of expectancy, a kind of hushed warmth lingering in the air. I padded across the wooden floor and stepped into the kitchen, where the sight before me made my breath catch. The small, well-loved wooden table had been transformed. In the center, a flickering candle cast a golden glow, illuminating a plate of homemade cinnamon rolls, each one perfectly shaped, their sugary glaze catching the light. A steaming cup of coffee sat beside the plate, my favorite ceramic mug cradling the dark liquid. And right in the middle of it all, a folded letter, my name written in Alex's familiar hand. For a moment, I just stood there taking it in. My throat tightened. Alex had always been thoughtful, but this was something else. With careful hands, I picked up the letter, my fingers tracing the edges before unfolding it. Mom, happy birthday. I wanted to start today by reminding you of what you mean to me. I can't begin to count the ways you've shaped my life, the sacrifices you've made, the quiet strength you've given me every single day. I remember being a little boy, waking up to the smell of cinnamon rolls just like these, watching you hum to yourself as you kneaded the dough. I remember you picking me up when I fell, telling me I was strong enough to try again. I remember late nights, when you sat with me and listened, even when you were exhausted. You gave me everything, and I can never thank you enough for that. The words blurred as tears welled in my eyes. I know I don't always say it, but I see you. I see the way you've carried so much on your own. I see the love you pour into every small thing. And today, I just wanted you to feel as cherished as you've always made me feel. I love you, Mom. I pressed the letter to my chest, my breath shuddering. The room around me felt hazy, softened by the sheer weight of love in those words. I set the letter down carefully, then reached for a cinnamon roll. As I broke off a piece, the warm sugar melted on my tongue, pulling me back into years of memories, small, flour-covered hands reaching for the dough, Alex standing on a stool beside me, his face smudged with powdered sugar, his laughter bubbling up as I showed him how to roll the dough just right. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway. Alex, my boy, now grown into a man, watching me with that quiet, knowing smile. Without hesitation, I moved toward him and cupped his face in my hands. His stubble scratched my palms, a reminder of just how much time had passed, how quickly childhood had slipped through my fingers. But in this moment, he was still my boy. I leaned in and pressed a kiss to his cheek, lingering there for a second longer than usual. A mother's silent gratitude. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered against his skin. He chuckled softly. I'm not done yet. Before I could ask, he reached behind the doorway and pulled out a large box, wrapped in elegant silver paper and tied with a satin ribbon. My breath caught as he placed it gently in my hands. Open it, he said, his voice laced with excitement. With careful fingers, I undid the ribbon and lifted the lid. My hand stilled as I pulled back the delicate tissue paper, revealing the most exquisite dress I had ever seen. The fabric was smooth and luxurious, flowing like liquid between my fingers. A deep, rich shade of midnight blue, embroidered with the most delicate silver thread that shimmered under the soft light. I swallowed hard, unable to speak. I had it made just for you, Alex murmured. I wanted it to be perfect. Tears welled up again, spilling over before I could stop them. I traced the intricate stitching, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness behind it. This wasn't just a dress. It was something deeply personal, something he had chosen with me in mind. A way of reminding me that I was still beautiful, still worthy of feeling special. Try it on, he encouraged gently. I hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Stepping away, I slipped into the bedroom and carefully changed into the dress. As I turned toward the mirror, a quiet gasp escaped my lips. The fabric hugged me in all the right places, the elegant drape giving me a quiet confidence I hadn't felt in years. I ran my hands down the smooth material, feeling something awaken inside me, something I had almost forgotten. I stepped back into the kitchen, my heart pounding slightly. Alex's eyes lit up as he took in the sight of me. You look beautiful, he said simply. A warmth spread through me, deeper than anything I could describe. I felt seen, cherished. I stepped toward him and wrapped my arms around his broad shoulders, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to his temple. "My sweet boy," I murmured. "Thank you. For everything." He just held me for a moment, his embrace firm and steady. And in that moment, I knew I had given him everything I could as a mother. And in return, he had given me the greatest gift of all, the reminder that I was loved always. The dress felt like a second skin, smooth and weightless, flowing around me as I moved. The fabric draped elegantly, hugging my figure in a way that felt both unfamiliar and exhilarating. I had forgotten what it was like to wear something so beautiful, something made just for me. The midnight blue shimmered under the afternoon light, the intricate silver embroidery catching with every subtle shift of my body. I ran my fingers over the delicate stitching, feeling the fine craftsmanship, the care that had gone into every thread. It had been years since I had seen myself like this, since I had allowed myself to. The mirror reflected a version of me that felt distant yet familiar, as though I were reconnecting with a part of myself I had long neglected. I wasn't just a mother, wasn't just the woman who kept the house running, who made sure everything was in order. I was Nora, a woman who had once felt vibrant, beautiful, worthy of admiration. And Alex had seen that. He had seen what I had stopped seeing in myself. I turned toward him, my heart swelling with an emotion I couldn't quite name. He held his camera now, adjusting the lens with a quiet focus, his expression unreadable, yet filled with something warm, something unspoken. The first soft click of the shutter echoed through the room. At first, I felt self-conscious, my hands fidgeting at my sides. I had never been comfortable in front of a camera. I had spent my life behind the scenes, capturing moments for others, never stepping into them myself. But Alex didn't rush me. He moved with a quiet patience, his eyes observing, searching for something beyond just an image. The camera clicked again, and again. My initial awkwardness lingered in the stiffness of my shoulders, the slight hesitation in my movements. But then he moved closer, his presence steady, grounding. He adjusted the angle, shifting the frame, and in doing so his fingertips brushed against my wrist, barely there, yet enough to send a shiver through me. It wasn't just a simple touch. It was something more, something that awakened a forgotten awareness within me. A moment later, another fleeting contact, a gentle guide to my chin as he encouraged me to lift my gaze, a soft brush of his fingers against my cheek as he tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I exhaled slowly, the warmth of the room, the golden glow of the late afternoon light wrapping around me like a cocoon. I let go just a little. My posture eased, the tension in my shoulders loosening. My lips curved into a soft, natural smile, and I allowed myself to be seen, not just in the reflection of the mirror, but through his eyes, through the lens that captured something deeper than just an image. The room felt smaller, the air thick with an emotion that lingered between us, something unnamed, something that wasn't just about a dress or a photograph, but about recognition, about being cherished, celebrated. Another touch, this time, the faintest brush of his fingertips along my forearm as he adjusted the position of my hand. The camera clicked, and I knew he had caught something genuine, something real. I felt alive. For years, I had let time wear me down, had let life pass in the quiet sacrifice of motherhood, in the solitude that came after Daniel left. I had stopped noticing the way the light danced through the windows in the afternoon, the way my own laughter sounded when I wasn't filtering it for anyone else. But now, standing here in this dress, captured in fleeting moments by my son, I felt it all rushing back. By the time the last shutter clicked, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. And then, without hesitation, I stepped forward. My hands reached for Alex, cupping his face with the same tenderness I had always carried for him. He was no longer the little boy who had once clung to my hand, but he would always be my son, my greatest gift. I leaned in and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to his temple. A silent thank you, an unspoken promise of love, of gratitude. The best birthday of my life. Not because of the dress, though it was exquisite. Not because of the breakfast, though it had filled me with warmth. But because for the first time in years I felt, deeply, undeniably, beautifully. The dress still clung to me, a second skin that carried the weight of emotions I hadn't expected to feel today. I wasn't ready to take it off just yet. It felt too special, too significant, as if shedding it would mean letting go of the moment. Alex must have sensed it. He always had a way of knowing my unspoken thoughts. As I admired my reflection one last time, still reveling in the quiet confidence it gave me, he made an unexpected suggestion. One that sent a rush of warmth through me. A walk. It was such a simple thing, yet something about it felt meaningful. Maybe because I couldn't remember the last time I had gone out just for the sake of it, without errands to run or responsibilities to tend to. Maybe because, deep down, I wanted to be seen today, not just by Alex and his camera, but by the world. And so we stepped outside together, the crisp winter air meeting us like a cool embrace. Snow blanketed the ground, softening the edges of the city, turning the streets into something almost dreamlike. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over everything, making even the most ordinary corners look ethereal. Alex walked beside me, his steps unhurried, matching my pace. The dress swayed gently around my legs as we strolled through the bustling streets, past coffee shops brimming with warmth and laughter, past storefronts twinkling with holiday lights. People moved around us, wrapped in scarves and heavy coats, lost in their own worlds. And yet, for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. A group of women passed by, their eyes flickering toward me, their gazes lingering just long enough to make my breath catch. I could almost hear their thoughts, admiration, maybe curiosity. A few turned back for a second glance, and a small thrill ran through me. Alex must have noticed because, without a word, he reached for his camera again. The city became our backdrop, a blur of motion and sound, a contrast to the stillness of the photos he captured. I barely heard the shutter clicks over the hum of passing conversations, the laughter spilling from nearby cafes. I only felt this, the moment, the way the cold nipped at my cheeks, the way my son's quiet attention made me feel like the most important person in the world. The touches were fleeting but electric. A guiding hand at the small of my back as we weaved through the crowd. A light brush of fingers against my wrist as he adjusted the angle of a shot. The warmth of his arm pressing briefly against mine as he stepped closer, positioning me near a storefront where the golden light spilled perfectly onto my face. And then, as if he wanted to capture more than just my image, he leaned in and adjusted the scarf around my shoulders, his knuckles grazing my neck in the process. A shiver ran down my spine, but not from the cold. I wasn't used to this. Not anymore. There was something intimate about it all. Not in the way of lovers, but in the way of deep, unbreakable connection. A bond that surpassed words. A bond built on years of sacrifice, love, and unwavering presence. As we walked toward the heart of the city, the air filled with the scent of roasted chestnuts and freshly baked bread, I found myself wanting to prolong the day, wanting to savor it. At some point, we stopped by a small plaza, where twinkling lights draped over the trees, casting everything in a soft, magical glow. I turned slightly, gazing at Alex at the way he observed me through the lens, not just as his mother but as someone who deserved to be seen, to be celebrated. The moment felt too big for words, so I did the only thing that felt right. I stepped forward, reaching up to cradle his face between my palms, my thumbs brushing over the rough stubble on his jaw. And then, with all the love and gratitude swelling in my chest, I pressed a lingering kiss to his forehead. A mother's love, an unspoken thank you, a moment that needed no explanation. This was the best birthday of my life. Not because of the dress, though it was exquisite. Not because of the breakfast, though it had filled me with warmth. Not even because of the photos, though they would forever hold today's magic. But because for the first time in years I felt, deeply, undeniably, beautifully. And that, more than anything, was the greatest gift of all. The warmth of Alex's forehead lingered against my lips even after I pulled away, a quiet sense of peace settling in my chest. The city hummed around us, laughter spilling from cafes, the faint chime of a street musician's guitar, the rhythmic click of my son's camera capturing moments I never thought I'd want to keep. We kept walking, my heels clicking softly against the cobblestone streets, the dress flowing around me with every step. I felt light, almost untethered, as if today had granted me permission to step outside of the version of myself I had been living in for so long. Alex slowed his pace, then gestured toward a small bridge overlooking the frozen canal. The wrought iron railing was dusted with snow, and street lamps lined the walkway, casting pools of golden light onto the icy surface below. It was breathtaking, the kind of scene that felt like something out of a painting, timeless and serene. And it was here, under the glow of the city, that he lifted his camera once more. I turned slightly, letting the winter air kiss my skin as I gazed over the water, my hands resting lightly on the railing. Another click, then another. This time, there was no hesitation, no lingering self-consciousness. I had spent years fading into the background, allowing myself to exist in the quiet, unseen spaces of life. But now, wrapped in this beautiful dress, under the watchful eye of the sun I had raised with every ounce of love in me, I felt something shift. A quiet acceptance, a realization that I was still here. Alex moved closer, the heat of his body a quiet contrast to the crisp evening air. He adjusted a strand of my hair, smoothing it back into place, his fingers grazing my cheek in the process. The touch was brief, fleeting, but like every moment today, it felt like something more. A silent acknowledgement. I smiled, letting the feeling settle, embracing it rather than pushing it away. We wandered through the streets a little longer, neither of us wanting to end the evening just yet. The city pulsed with life, couples walking hand in hand, families gathered at bakery windows, the air thick with the scent of cinnamon and sugar. At one point, Alex paused in front of a softly lit storefront, where the reflection of the city shimmered on the glass. He turned the camera toward me once more, his expression unreadable but full of something I couldn't quite name. And this time, when the camera clicked, I didn't just pose. I lived in the moment. I let the wind tousle my hair. I let the golden glow of the streetlights bathe my skin. I let myself feel beautiful, not just for what I was wearing, but for what this day had given me, the reminder that I was still someone. A few final photos, the last of the evening. And then, with a satisfied exhale, Alex lowered the camera, tucking it away. I turned to him, my heart swelling with gratitude so immense it felt impossible to contain. And so, for the second time that night, I reached for him, cradling his face the way I had done countless times before, back when he was just a boy. But this time, I kissed his cheek, not just as his mother, but as a woman who had been given the greatest gift of all. A day of rediscovery, a moment of feeling seen, a birthday unlike any other. And as we made our way home, the city lights twinkling behind us, I knew that this was more than just a fleeting celebration. It was a beginning. The warmth of yesterday still clung to me as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling long after the city had gone quiet. I felt lighter somehow, as if something in me had shifted, as if the years that had once weighed so heavily on my shoulders had loosened their grip, if only for a moment. The dress still rested on the chair near my bed, its fabric catching the soft glow of the bedside lamp. I couldn't bring myself to put it away. I wanted to hold on to yesterday for just a little longer, to the feeling of being seen, of being cherished, of stepping outside the quiet solitude I had built around myself over the years. I ran my fingers over the delicate material, tracing its seams as I exhaled slowly. My mind replayed the way Alex had looked at me through his lens, the way his hands had so carefully adjusted my hair, the way he had draped his scarf around me without a second thought, the way his presence had wrapped around me, steady and warm, like something I hadn't realized I had been missing. Something had changed, not just in him but in us. The lines that once marked the space between mother and son felt softer now, blurred by time and the depth of our connection. It wasn't wrong, wasn't something to fear, it was simply us. A closeness that had never wavered, even as he grew into a man, even as life pulled him away on his journeys. I fell asleep with that thought lingering in my mind. Morning arrived in slow, golden waves, creeping in through the curtains and spilling across the wooden floors. The house was still, the air crisp from the lingering winter chill. I wrapped myself in my robe, the plush fabric comforting against my skin, and padded downstairs, drawn by the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Alex was already awake. He stood at the kitchen counter, flipping through his notes, half lost in his own world. His hair was slightly tousled from sleep, his expression calm and focused. I stopped in the doorway for a moment, just watching him. The boy I had raised was gone, replaced by this man, This strong, capable, thoughtful man who had somehow grown into someone who could see me in a way no one else ever had. He must have heard me approach because he glanced up, setting his notes aside without hesitation. He reached for the extra mug beside him and handed it to me, his fingers brushing against mine. It was such a simple thing, but the warmth of that brief touch spread through me, settling deep in my bones. I took the cup and wrapped my hands around it, letting the heat seep into my skin as I took a slow sip. The taste was rich, familiar, grounding. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken things, of understanding, of the quiet comfort that came with knowing someone so deeply that words were never truly necessary. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting golden streaks across the countertops. Outside, frost clung to the bare branches, turning the world into something soft and ethereal. Alex reached for his camera again. I didn't flinch this time. I didn't turn away. Instead, I simply stood there, cradling my mug, letting the moment settle around me like a warm embrace. The shutter clicked once, then again. It wasn't like yesterday. I wasn't dressed in silk and lace, wasn't adorned in anything special. Just my robe, just the remnants of sleep still clinging to my skin, just the quiet contentment of a morning shared. But I knew, somehow, that these photos meant just as much. Alex moved closer, adjusting the frame, and in doing so his fingertips brushed against my wrist. I didn't pull away. I let the touch linger. There was something unspoken in that contact, something gentle and familiar, yet undeniably different. The kind of closeness that comes not just from love, but from truly knowing one another. And then, just as naturally as breathing, I reached up and pressed a slow, lingering kiss to his cheek. It was soft, unhurried. A thank you, a whisper of affection, a quiet acknowledgement of everything he had given me. Not just yesterday, not just today, but always. I let my lips linger against his skin for a second longer than necessary before pulling away. His eyes met mine, and in them, I saw the same warmth I felt radiating through my own chest. We didn't need to speak. We understood. The boundary between us had blurred, but I didn't fear it. I welcomed it.